We're good.
Okay, so the ad hoc training committee meeting is beginning right now, and we have two main overall topics. The first one is the report to the full commission on Wednesday, making sure we're highlighting what we want to highlight, and then we can dig into our special topics document for training. So I was thinking that we wanted to emphasize four things, because what we're presenting on Wednesday is what was already presented in February, right, Brandon?
Correct. Yeah.
And now this time the commission gets to vote on it because we've incorporated their ideas. And the things I thought we needed to kind of get resolution on first is simulators. Is doing the simulators something the full commission thinks is an important thing to do? And if so, like, how can we do that? Then the second one is that one of the things we added on to that document was a little asterisk for the elements that are critical for commissioners to get trained on before they do case review. And then the rest of the things are more augmenting that, I guess, would be the way to do it. So that was the second thing to emphasize. And then we also changed the ride-along category to be a hands-on experience. And so the ride-along, it's clear that a ride-along can be sitting with the dispatch, doing a ride-along with a community member to see that perspective, do a law enforcement ride. You know, like it can really be whatever the commissioner feels would enhance their understanding the best. So I thought we should emphasize that change. And then the last thing I was thinking about bringing up, because I reached out to Gloria, I had this idea that with new commissioners coming on, it's a great opportunity for any trainings that those of us who've been here for a little while have missed, that we could jump onto those. And I made that suggestion to Gloria, and I said, oh, you know, staff's probably already on top of it. And she thought maybe staff wasn't even aware of who had which training. So maybe we could ask them to keep track of the trainings by all the commissioners so that then we can, you know, have people fill in if it works in their schedule or whatever. So those are the 4 points I thought were important to make on Wednesday. I don't know what everybody else feels.
I was taking notes as you were going over that because I think all those make sense. I know for the simulators, what we wanted to do is open it up for the full commission to have them share their perspectives. And so
Exactly.
We didn't make any changes on that, but we want people to be able to share their thoughts, and then we can figure out if that's something that we want to move forward with. But yeah, I made notes of those 4 things, and we can share those at the commission meeting on Wednesday.
Sounds
Okay.
good. Sounds good to me. I think you touched on the various options for people to do, you know, besides the ride along, you know, more choices. That's good.
Okay, cool. Hi, Dwayne. How are you?
I'm okay. You know, I didn't have the link. I didn't have the looked on my laptop also. I didn't have the link on my laptop.
How weird. You didn't get that email from Alina today, huh? I wonder
Nope.
if she missed you somehow.
I mean, she may have said it might, because I'm looking at my laptop and my emails are way behind. Date-wise, they're way behind. So I don't know what's going on.
Did you change your password? I think it expired. I had to do all that.
Yeah, I
do
changed my
that.
password.
Yeah.
I changed my password and it accepted it, but then the next time I tried to use it, it wouldn't, and then I had to use my old one and it accepted it.
That's
Interesting.
bizarre.
I know.
So,
Yeah, I know we're kind of getting slightly off training, but I know part of the issue that I had is when you try to change your password, it won't change it for your laptop unless you're on the city network. So maybe that's because I had that same issue where if I was trying to change or to log in on the laptop, I'd have to use my old password until I was literally at a city facility where I could connect in, and then it would update everything. So maybe that could be part of it.
Oh, you know what?
Okay.
I have that issue. I have to use my old password to pay into my laptop, city
yeah.
a laptop, but then the email is under Outlook, but that's the one that I changed the password. It works. So I have two different passwords now.
Yeah,
So-
so
It's just bizarre. Anyway.
yeah, the next time we're actually at any city facility, or if we go to a city hall meeting or something like that and you connect in, once you're physically on a city network, it'll update that. But yeah, I had to do the same thing about a month ago.
Okay.
Sorry for that. Okay, so Dwayne, we were just talking about how we want to present things on Wednesday, and I feel like we're all good with that. Do you want us to review that for you?
No, go ahead. I
Oh.
heard some of it. But,
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, so then I thought we would start digging into the special topics list for training that we have, and I thought I would, oh, it looks like I can't share my screen. Doesn't let me.
See if I can see.
That's weird. I made you co-host. You should be able to.
Oh, maybe it's my, well, the little share button is grayed out.
Here, let me try sharing it because it looks like I can do it.
Okay.
Let me
that's
try
fine.
doing it for now, and then that way we can at least get it going.
Okay, perfect.
There we go.
Okay, so this implicit bias training, I feel like we've talked about with the full commission before. And now my brain is not remembering what.
I think it's been a while. So I think if I remember correctly, and if anyone has better memories than I do on this, I think we initially had this in one of the other training documents, and then we decided to pull it out and move it here. So I think we did discuss it previously, but we pulled it out of the other one and put it here on special topics because we felt it needed more. It's kind of more of a standalone. I think was.
Oh, wait. Yasmin is saying it's from the December 12th meeting.
Yeah, before you guys started working on the training and making them into 3 separate categories, you had advanced about 5 trainings to the commission to get them voted on and started for the remainder of the fiscal year. This was one of them.
And did the commission already say, yes, move ahead with this? That's what I'm not remembering.
No, they did not vote to allow you all to use the money on any of the trainings and asked you to go back and do some more digging.
Okay. So I guess give it, because I do remember that discussion. Because I still think this is a really good idea.
I think if I remember right, and thanks, Yasmin, for refreshing our memory on that. I think the issue was when we initially had brought it up, we were asking to be able to start spending some of that training money. And I think the base premise that we got was, we don't want to spend any money yet. Can you guys go back and see what's available? And then we could bring it back to the full commission. And hopefully, I think obviously we're trying to be economical with how we spend our I think it was like $20,000. I think that was kind of the main issue there.
But don't you remember, now it's coming back to me. There's also the part where there's a NACOL training. And this is what I was saying. Okay, now I'm remembering. Okay, so I put a note in here that the NACOL training examines the state of police training related to bias. It doesn't focus specifically on what bias we personally have and that we are bringing to it. So it's a different type of thing. And I suggested that somebody needs to watch it and pre-screen it before we make a recommendation whether we think it's a good one for us or not. And then Yasmin, you got the cost estimate for the Muslim one already. And then, right?
Yes.
And then the panel presentations by the Office of Race and Equity staff. Anyway, then my question, I don't know anything about that panel presentation. So my question was, could this be something that we could, like, would this meet our needs especially if the NACO one doesn't, because the NACO one is free. And I thought this, and Yasmin, I believe you're the one who was talking about this, that the Office of Race and Equity, they provide these presentations, right? Like that's part of their job. So that would be a cost-free thing also.
So they do a version of it. Their training is about, I think, 3 hours. It's a 1-day, 3-hour training. Really, it's more of a presentation than a like a hands-on training.
Mhm.
And me and Brandon talked to the office, and right now they are not providing those trainings anymore. Specifically,
Oh.
also they're not providing it for commissions yet. Brandon, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty much that. We did have a conversation with the director of that group. And I think part of it is they kind of have to prioritize the various departments within the city that they do it with first. And then
Mhm.
part of the other issue is she needed to go back and kind of talk with, you know, her boss, the mayor, partially because we as a commission with our independent aspect, there's kind of this weird area of, well, you're independent, so therefore you don't get other things. But what we've also tried to remind people is, yes, we are independent, but we are also a city entity. So just because we have in the statute that we're independent from the mayor's office and we're independent from the police department, it doesn't mean, for example, HR doesn't provide services on our behalf because we're independent. So part of it is that a little bit of an issue is we're trying to work through that. And she was going to do some work on her side. When we had the conversation, if I remember correctly, this was about a month or two ago. She had a couple of deadlines she was working on for other things. And so she was going to do some research on her side and come back to us, but it was not going to be, you know, in the next week or so. It was going to be a much longer process. So I kind of feel like if we have that on there, it's probably not going to be till next fiscal year at the earliest, is my guess.
So I guess my question is, what should we, like, here's what I think.
Yeah.
I think somebody needs to watch the NACO one and see if that meets our needs. I don't think it does. And then, because Olga was the one that said that it provides a good overview of the science of implicit bias. But I don't know, I think we need something that's more, Yasmin, get me out of this.
Oh no, you can please finish your thought process.
Well, I was just saying, I think it would be great if we had something that was just direct and clear and applicable to the work that we do, rather than having something that's kind of sort of related, you know what I mean? Which this NACO one, I think, is based on what Olga was telling me.
Yeah, I 100% hear and agree with you. I think someone watching it to see how can that training benefit the overall curriculum would be a great idea. I would recommend, I think here maybe this is where we need to do a little bit more research on what other options are out there and what is the cost. Because I remember when I was originally looking at implicit bias training, I got several recommendations from actually the Office of Race and Equity. And just off the bat, like the first one I searched up, they were asking for $20,000. So I think doing research and showing maybe 3 options to the commissions of if we want to do really thoughtful and impactful implicit bias training, here are the 3 options that we found. Here are the costs for all 3, just to show them what does it actually cost to have a training like this. I think that would be helpful. And I think just reminding, like from my end, we can't learn how to be less biased through a video. So I think really like encouraging people that this is an area where we may need to really get professional support and have more hands-on trainings to make sure that it is more impactful. And I think this time around, we're coming in from a different perspective because you all have already created 2 separate training curriculums ahead of this, right? You created the onboarding, you created the case report, case review. So they're not looking at this money in a vacuum. It's more like, okay, this is everything we've created so far. This is all the trainings we think we're gonna need. And really, from all of them, very few are gonna cost us money. And that's okay. Some of them will need money, and that's okay. But I think giving them more than one option will be helpful.
You're right, because I just opened up the documents that we presented in November and in December. And all those said is, here's the implicit bias option, number 1, which you had, I'm remembering now, Yasmin, you had negotiated down to just be $7,000 instead of 10. So I guess my question is, who's the best person to do research to find other options for this implicit bias? Lupe, go ahead. Are you muted and you can't talk?
Oh,
Say,
yeah, here, I'm back. I just got into the NACO website and it says implicit bias for law enforcement this is implicit bias for commissioners, right? For commissioners, not law enforcement?
That's what we want right now, yes.
Yeah. The only one I could find on the website was for law enforcement.
Exactly, that's my point.
Yeah, unless that's not what we're looking for. Impartial police training, I don't see anything about, well, anyway. Okay, sorry, I missed your point. I was busy looking at the website.
I can definitely support with some of the research. I would like to tag with someone, like tag team. That way, if we identify good options and schedule meetings with them, like have those meetings together. It would be nice if one of the co-chairs is able to do that, but if other commissioners, that would be great too.
Oh, I just found something from UCLA. It's called the implicit bias. They're modules. It's called UCLA Equity and Diversity and Inclusion Implicit Bias Training. So I don't know. I mean, I just found it while I was Googling.
Right. What we need, Lupe, is something that then follows that through to the end. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Instead of just telling us links on this meeting.
No. I understand what you're saying. I'm just looking at it right now. I'm just like verbalizing what I just found. I'm not saying, sending links to anybody. I'm just looking at it right now. There's like 6 modules and they're like 5 minutes each, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I mean, I'll be interested in looking at this and report back.
Yes, that would be great if you would.
Cool. All right. When do you need it by? As soon as possible.
Before our next meeting in a week.
Okay, cool.
And I can
ask. I don't know if you can deliver.
And I can take a look at the NACOL one and review that, and I can report back on whether or not it's something that will fit our needs. Because to be honest, I think I've looked at it, but I think it's been years since I looked at it.
Okay. So Lupe, do you and Yasmin want to work together on that, or?
I can, if Commissioner Diaz wants to look at the ones she just found, and then I can look into other ones and go back to my notes to remember which ones the Office of Race and Equity gave me, and pull more information about those too.
Okay.
Sounds like a good plan. Okay.
Okay, so I'm just adding those notes.
That's the next one that we had.
Okay. Don't freak out, I'm editing as you go. Sorry.
Okay, I'll move that back up. The other one we had was the culture, communication, and conflict. That was the free training from the National Conflict Resolution Center.
Yep.
I mean, I think that one is pretty positive, and I think obviously if they're free, we had less, I think, pushback when it came to spending money. But I think trying to deal with de-escalation issues, I think, is important. And then I think the only thing is it's a little bit long. It was 8 hours.
Yeah, I think the time commitment is something that people might balk at a little bit. And then we have an objective, but we don't have a purpose.
Oh, it was further down.
Oh, is it?
The
Okay.
purpose was prepare commissioners with strategies for handling
Okay.
difficult
All right, good.
situations.
All right, maybe I can pop it up. There we go. It's up now. All right. Thank you. So these ones we provided a lot of details on these ones because we'd already presented them.
And I don't, off the top of my head, remember. So if you guys do, please chime in. I don't remember what the feedback from the commission or the community was on the youth and adult partnerships that we had that estimate for a half-day training from Global Arc. I don't remember any feedback off the top of my head. I don't know if you guys do.
Let's see if I can figure that out. Hold
I
on.
was gonna say, maybe what we just do is when we bring this forward, we just represent and then we get feedback. We also have some newer commissioners too that were not available. Well, they were not on a commission, so they weren't able to participate. We might get some feedback from them as well.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe I should go back and listen to the December meeting.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I'll do the same.
And then I can add notes into this document that make it clear what the issue, if there's any issues.
I think the other ones we had, the rebuilding community and government relationships and trust. I think, actually, Yasmin, you might know from the meeting that we had on Saturday about what we're looking for in an executive director, that what we have highlighted in red right there was community expectations of CPP. Do you think, is there anything that was said on that Saturday meeting that rather than the position of executive director might kind of be a larger piece that goes to just the expectations from the community of what CPP does? Is there anything, were you able to attend that?
I was facilitating that.
Okay, so then yes. Is there anything that you feel is like applicable to that aspect of overall as a commission expectation?
Definitely. I mean, the trust issue was definitely brought up. Transparency was brought up. I think some of the larger themes that we've been trying to tackle definitely were brought up. The plan is with Saturday's feedback to compile it and create like a report slash summary of the conversation. So my brain is currently a little bit foggy.
Sure,
It's the
yeah.
last
Yeah.
hour before I break my fast. But yes, definitely there were at least a few pieces that were larger than just an executive director.
So then why don't we put this one on hold until we have a chance to review that, and then we can probably incorporate some of kind of that summary report and pull things out as appropriate and put it here as well.
This Tasha Williamson one, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Does that kind of make sense for everybody?
Mhm.
Yeah,
I see heads
it
nodding,
does.
so.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
see it. Yeah.
Okay. And then the next one, Jim Waller, I did reach out to Sharon Fairley and she did make the introduction. And I was looking to see if Jim Waller ever got back to me, or did I not reach out to him, which I thought I had, but maybe I need to reach out to him again. But I do have his contact information, so I'll follow up with him.
I'm also wondering if this component we incorporated in the case review piece or broken down, because several pieces I remember we talked about inviting outside criminal defense attorneys to speak on these issues. So does that cover it? I know it doesn't cover, for example, the human rights piece or civil rights necessarily, but I'm wondering if parts of it is already incorporated in the case review portion.
I think it probably does. I mean, if not, I think there's some carryover.
I feel like it's different. Let me look at this again. Oh, I don't know.
Because it does say requirement related to complaints.
And the community component both.
Oh, I see.
Now, those little notes I took from that document that you made way back when, and I just added them into this document so that all the information would be in one place.
Yeah.
Um,
And this came directly from the community ad hoc. What was it called, Brandon? The transition.
Transition committee. Yeah.
Yeah. This specific warden and community members have several times repeated the importance of having experts from different backgrounds. So maybe we can dig a little bit deeper into what this would mean.
yeah, because I don't think there's anything in the case review document that really gets at this. But I can think about it more. So I'm wondering, who would I reach out in the community to get more on what that transition group, what they meant by this?
I mean, Kate would be a good person to reach out to here.
And we can also talk to Doug as well. Doug was the chair of the transition committee.
Okay.
I mean, I was
Alright.
on it as well, but I know both Doug and I are trying to try to make sure the community has their voice heard, and so we don't want that getting lost. So, but yeah, I mean, Kate was
So
on
do
there.
you think it would be better for me to reach out to Kate than Doug?
I mean, both. I mean, to be honest, I mean, but we were all three of us were part of that process. But I mean, I think Kate was
Well,
pretty.
what can you share now?
Well, I
yourself?
think part of it was, and that's why I was saying I think it's a little bit this kind of the same conversation. And I think what we heard from, and I know you weren't at the meeting, but when we presented it early February, the feedback we got from other commissioners is they wanted us to have additional outside resources, like criminal justice or criminal defense attorneys rather, that could kind of shine a light on some of these things. And I think that maybe the civil piece kind of comes in on that. But I almost think if we're going to do like civil rights, human rights as it relates to criminal justice, I mean, we can talk to Jim, and I think we can try to see if there's maybe some other resources that we could use that can kind of share their perspectives. But yeah, and I'll have to go back and look at some of my notes too. But I mean, we can, and I can even do that. I can reach out if you want. I can reach out to Kate and Doug and ask if they want to kind of specifically highlight this issue of what they feel that we should do. I'll make a note to do that.
Yeah, that sounds good if you do that.
And then right off the bat, someone who comes to mind who does a lot of this work in the community is Genevieve F. Jones. So just if we're doing a panel, she would be great to have on that panel.
Okay.
And Michele, what's her last name? Michele Woodson. I can write the name in the chat.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'll follow up with them and I'll shoot an email back to everybody.
Okay.
All right.
So Michelle Woodson and who else? Yasmin.
Genevieve Jones, right? There's an accent on the E, but I can't figure out how to write it. So I'm just gonna spell it. And yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I got it. I can copy from here now. Okay.
And I'll put their orgs in there too.
Okay. What does that mean?
Sorry,
And
Michele. I'm Michele Think Dignity and G Genevieve Mogo.
So moral governance is all right.
Yes,
Yeah.
for Justin something futures.
Yeah.
Mogo. Community advocates for Justin moral governance. We were both off.
Okay. Your guys' shorthand. I don't always know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Okay.
Genevieve, they call that group MOGO is kind of when they send stuff out, you'll see it as MOGO.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. So we'll follow up on that. And moving on, where are we now?
So the next one was reporting CBP updates in the community. And Yasmin, you're the expert on that. So we have you down as the community outreach coordinator, as the person who's kind of going to be doing some of that. I know you've been doing like the newsletters and things like that as well.
Yeah, I remember where this one came. I think it was Alec. He was saying, you know, if we were trained, we could help spread the word, kind of thing.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit through what's the vision here. Is it like what are the best practices to share like community outreach? Is that the vision?
Well, reading the objective and the purpose, which is probably something Darlan made up. It was giving commissioners, for those that are so moved to do so, a framework to use when there's, because, you know, sometimes it comes up, right? Like, you know, people in the world I live in sometimes ask me about it or whatever. And I was having a conversation with, oh, I know what it was. I was doing those calls to recruit people to come on Saturday.
Yeah.
And this one guy started talking my ear off. He got me on the phone for like 20 minutes. And I was like, you know, I don't even know how much I'm supposed to be talking about this right now. I'm just supposed to be encouraging people to come, right? So like, so we don't violate any of the rules around it. I mean, I know we're not supposed to talk to the media, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So-
I think you can share it with community updates that have been shared publicly in meetings. That's something that you all can always do.
And I could go back and Alina might have it, but we had kind of like the quick elevator pitch. And the idea was kind of a quick 30-second thing and maybe a 2-minute thing that we could kind of go out and we were talking to either various community groups. Like I did it with Lupe and her neighborhood group. I did a presentation and kind of a quick high level overview of here's what we do as a commission, here's why we do it, and here's how people file complaints. I think we already have something that we might need to edit it to kind of bring it to what our new commission is, but we could share that as well. But I think this goes beyond that.
There's I don't know if this is part of it, but like in my conversation on the phone, it was like, some people think we can do things we can't do.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll be able to do them someday. But right. And so, I mean, some of those things people want to talk about too.
Sure.
You know, so I don't know what, I mean, maybe we could ask Alec more what he wanted out of it, but basically the more those of us that are commissioners kind of seize these kind of opportunities, I do think it facilitates trust between us and the community. And then maybe people are like, wow, I'd like to be a commissioner and we have a vacancy or something, you know?
Yeah.
And I think part of it too, and you know, not to speak for everybody else, but I think something that the commission in the past was not good at, and you know, when I was chair, I tried to change a little bit, was get more information out as to what our achievements have been. And when we've made policy recommendations, how many of those policy recommendations have been adopted by the police department? Because I think that's when people see, because to your point, people want us to do certain things we can't do, But the things we can do and are doing, I think that's important for us to say, hey, we've made 50 recommendations to the police department to change policies. And, 30% of those were adopted or 90% were adopted, whatever it is. I think we need to be a little bit clearer about that. But I think that's kind of showing our successes of, where we're able to, impact change that helps the community. I think that's where we need to try to report that back out. And I think that's partially what Yasmin's doing with the emails as well. Of, we've reviewed this many cases, we discussed this many policies, things like that.
So from what I'm hearing, this is kind of an opportunity of, here's how, like if we would to do a CPP 101 training with community, here's what would go into it. Part of that would be like, what are we about? What is the work we do? Potentially quickly how to file complaints, and then what have we accomplished in the past? Is it something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. In my head, those are like 3 different trainings, because I would do how to file complaints 1, how to apply to be a commissioner 1, and then CPP 101. But I think we can make a generic that just shows everything in without a lot of detail, and then I can have the more detailed versions as well. But yes, I can do that.
And you know what I'm thinking too, is that, some of us can be like, this is a really fulfilling way to volunteer, right? So if we're sharing this stuff, we might not stick to a script as much as, bringing some of our personality to it. We can encourage commissioners to do that.
Yeah, I think it would be important to give like, here's a draft and here's like the stuff you can pull from. Feel free to add to it, to remove from it, but here's like the basics, so people don't have to worry about, oh, like I don't have a PowerPoint, I can create something that's consistent. And by the way, I have all of this. We have used all of those as community engagement team, but this is kind of more institutionalizing like community outreach and making sure that commissioners are also taking part of that and are trained to do it well.
Nice. Okay. This domestic violence one, I can't remember how it came up, but I do know. So I was looking at the Chicago Police Accountability Office. Their acronym is COPA. Oh yeah, they're splayed out. Civilian Office of Police Accountability. Yeah, they I was looking at what do they do, and so this wasn't listed in ours in any way, shape, or form. So I put it on, but that doesn't mean that we need it. So there's no objective, no purpose. We have so much, maybe we delete it until it comes up. I don't know what you all think.
I think this is going to be something that we're going to need to have some training on, but part of it, I think the nexus of this is because the way that the commission changed, we now should be able to see all the investigations that are essentially internal misconduct from the police department. So for example, if it was in the media a couple days ago, there was an officer who's off duty who was arrested for domestic violence. Now someone hasn't filed a complaint on that, but the new commission should be able to review those. Now there's a little bit of a hiccup there because the current chief of police basically says, I know the commission is supposed to have access to this, but I'm not going to let you have it. So I think until those rules are taken care of and determined as to exactly how that works, I don't think there's much for us to do on this yet, but I think this is going to be a really important thing once we do have access to those internal misconduct files. So I would agree with you. Let's maybe not delete it, but maybe we put it at the bottom as a pending future developments or something.
Okay. You know what I can do is I can move it. We can have another list, and another list is like
pending legal.
I don't know.
I was actually about to suggest that.
Yeah.
Because we have identified at least one other training that, Brendan, I remember me and you talking about this, that we said we probably don't need this now, but we probably will need it in the future
Right.
once the commission is established. So now I don't remember what that was, but I
Don't
know
either.
we need to find at least one other training like that.
I know there's a couple things that are just, it's waiting kind of legal guidance, and also we'd have to have, you know, the memorandum of understanding with the police department, with the union and all that. So, I mean, it's not anytime soon. And I think this one is one of them, but yeah, the internal misconduct issues are, I think that has to be figured out first before we can figure out what we're doing on training.
Okay, then moving on to the next one. The next one applies to us now because it's disciplinary recommendations. And then that's funny. I put it all together because it all was from week 6 of the COPA Academy in Chicago. So that's why it's all together. But I feel like the analysis and data and a dashboard and all that is a separate thing.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Do we have on the case review one anything about discipline? Let me check that out.
I don't think so.
Well, we do have on the internal affairs one, we have their disciplinary processes. That's the only thing we have. So,
Let's see, where is it?
but it's not about like how we would draft ours.
Yeah.
The internal affairs one on that is number 8.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the process there, I think, is what we had.
Mm-hmm.
But I think to your point, and again, this is a little bit one of those issues where in order for us to make a valid recommendation for discipline, we have to have access to that officer's file. And that's going to have the union's going to need to chime in on that. But, and, you know, once we actually hire our new full-time executive director, I think that's probably when we can get that moving. But we have to figure out the process on that.
But we do the discipline memos, right? This is not that. This is something else.
So we're still doing it the way that the old commission did it. What we can do is, you know, per the charter change, is we can now make a recommendation to the chief of police what we feel the discipline should be. But we need, in order to do that, we have to have access to, you know, is this that officer's first instance of that misconduct or their 10th? And if we don't have that information, we can't make a, you know, an appropriate recommendation for discipline. So right now we're kind of one step after that. We review the discipline after it's been issued, and we basically say if whether or not we agree with the discipline and if it was within the discipline matrix. So this new thing is like one step before. So we're going to recommend what we think the discipline should be. Then the department will issue that discipline, and then they'll come back to us and say, here's what we issued, which may or may not be the same as what we recommended. So they're a little bit different.
Okay.
But I agree with you. I think that third bullet we have there, that probably needs to be a separate item.
Is this even, so policy research and analysis and how to use the dashboard?
I kind of feel like, so, and Yasmin, you might be a little more in the loop on this. One of the positions we were looking to hire at some point was a policy analyst. So kind of like with the meeting that we just had on the 6th, I mean, of police pursuits, they would be able to look at, you know, body camera issues or firearms or use of chemical spray. And then they could look at what other cities are doing and make recommendations to the commission. And then we can make recommendations to the police department. I think some of this kind of depends on until we hire that position, which is going to be a full-time staff member. That would be our commission policy analyst. And I think at that point, that's where I think this one really comes into play.
And is the data dashboard related to that, or that, because we have, like, staff do that report that says how many complaints we had and blah, blah, blah. Is that what's the data dashboard is, or what's the data dashboard?
So I think the data dashboard is, and Yasmin, you might know this as well. So I think it was like every 3 or 6 months, Charmaine, our former executive director, she would send all the data of how many cases we've reviewed, what types of allegations they were, and that gets put into the city's open data portal. So you could then do a search and see, say we had 100 cases, how many of them did we agree or disagree with the police department? How many of the allegations were sustained or exonerated? That's the data portal that we have. But I think, our data dashboard, I think it's kind of the same thing as the data portal. It's just, I don't know how often we send that data over. I think it's like either every 3 or 6 months.
Brendan, I think you were right. I think it is either quarterly or something
Yeah.
like that, but I'm not sure how this is related.
So I feel like these need to be 3 separate topics, right? And they all need to wait until we've developed further, probably, right? We need to have an
Yeah.
executive director to figure out how the dashboard should be, because maybe the way it is now isn't a good way.
It's
I mean-
definitely not, and that's something that Charmaine was working on making better.
And I know PANDA is the acronym for it. That's the group that deals with all the data. I personally think, if anything, what we should do is we should have a page on our website that says, if you want to look at all the data we have, here's the types of data you can look at, and here's how you use the tool, because it's not easy to figure out. Most people don't even know you can do that. I mean, I think Yasmin just shared the link in the chat if anyone wants to look at it. But once you get in there, you can actually see, and you can kind of tinker around and you can figure it out. But if you're just tinkering around on the CPP website, you're probably not likely going to find that link and get to that information. But I think we should probably just have a page that maybe says, here's the types of data that's available, here's how you use it, and here's the link to get to that information. So maybe we take that off altogether and we just put it as like an action item for staff to create a page of, here's the data that you can use and how to access it. That's my thought, at least.
So,
And maybe that goes into the onboarding packet, like whatever commissioners are receiving when they first get sworn in, like they get a 1-pager about our data portal, and they just know it exists and it's on our website. And then when they go to the website, like Brandon says, there's instructions on how to use it. Maybe that's all it needs to be, really.
It's a good point. I actually, to be honest, I wasn't even thinking about the commissioner side. I was thinking more about the public.
Mhm.
Because I think just by the nature of us doing the work, we're going to see that information. But I think, the average member of the
Yeah.
community won't see that. So I was thinking more kind of as an external thing of how we make sure people can see the data of what we're doing. That was my thought, but both is fine too.
So it sounds like we definitely don't need it as a training for the commissioners.
I don't think so, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Or we could also leave it here and ask the full commission what they think too. But I kind of feel like this might be more of a public facing thing.
I'm actually opened the document. It has just a lot of cases with a lot of numbers and, divisions or actual where it occurred and number of days it's been open. It's sort of like for the data keeping for who's ever keeping data on all these cases. Are these the cases that were resolved or something? Because it goes back to 2019.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, it's a lot. I mean,
The idea is it's part of the transparency initiative. We want to make sure
Yeah.
that people can see.
yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's and Yasmin just put in the chat, it's very difficult to navigate, and I agree.
Mhm,
It's,
mhm. Yeah, it's some kind of program they're using.
it's not very clunky, but I've actually referred a lot of media to it, because when they're trying to get information on, for example, like
Mhm.
what division has the most complaints, and of those
Mm.
complaints, how many are sustained, that's where I think you can use that data to try to kind
Oh,
of export
yeah.
that. And then, if you're trying to build a story to do a reporting piece, you can look
Mhm.
at that and get more information. But
I see.
I mean, my personal thought is I don't know if we need that as training for the commissioners. I think it's more of a public thing, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm open to
Hmm.
anything on that one.
Well, I put that
Um,
as a comment, if it's, questioning whether it's necessary as training for
Mhm.
commissioners, and then we can percolate on it for now. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure, yeah, that's okay.
And just as a heads up, we're almost at the 1 hour mark, and I think Yasmin has to hop off
Mhm.
shortly.
Okay.
So,
So maybe this is a good stopping point.
okay, because I think after that we get to the panel, which we kind of already touched base on, about civil or human rights, criminal justice, youth, mental health, et cetera. So maybe we just put it there and we hold off until next week to finish it off. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah,
Sure,
and then I
yeah.
think some of this stuff I can delete out of here that we've taken care of too.
Okay.
So I'll clean it up.
All right. Well, I have a couple action items for me. I will report back by next week. I'll watch the NACOL meeting, and then I'll also try to reach out to Doug and Kate, and I'll chime in and let you guys know what we find out on that one.
Okay, sounds good.
I will look into other options for the implicit bias, and if there's any meetings that I'm scheduling, or yeah, I will let you all know to see who would like to join the meeting.
Okay,
Sounds good. All right, guys. Well,
Thanks, everybody.
I think that's it. And I will see you guys on Wednesday.
All right. See ya.
Definitely.
All right. Have a good night, guys.